Wow,
Well, ladies, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers to another
Welcome.
new crew.
Cheers. I
Welcome
can reach
back,
you this
Jennifer.
time.
Yes, okay, and hi Nanette and hi Rana.
Hello.
Yes, well, okay, so if you saw our previous episode, it was all about styling and staging with our expert, Jennifer Donovan-Faubert. But now Jen's going to throw on a different hat, and she's now going to talk about real estate. You know, one of our favorite shows, love it or list it, but we're going to get the nitty-gritty, the behind the scenes.
Oh, give it to us.
Yes.
Okay.
Lay it on.
How long is the show?
Depends what it is. But okay, you.
No, I mean, just like any practical information for someone who's perhaps selling or buying.
Okay.
You know, and
Well-
maybe even like age specific. I just know that there's a lot of people, maybe like older people, seniors who are like downgrading. I know a lot of family members who are now selling their big homes and now moving into apartments or condos or whatnot.
Yes.
Even just advice for that, just for people who, just those kind of tricks of the trade.
Yeah, I am all about education of the industry. I think people should have a good idea of what goes on behind the scenes and what they're getting into. If they're downsizing, if they're upgrading, if they want to look at investment properties, it's all different. It's all different. And I believe in top tier service. And by tier, I mean transparency, integrity, education, and respect.
Wow, I thought you had different tiers for different.
I'm all about the acronyms.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe that people should know about the real estate industry, and I feel it's my job as somebody who's providing that service to teach them.
And there's a lot of misinformation. And
There
I just want to be
there is,
clear,
yeah.
like, you know, Jennifer, you're with Remax Top Performance, and
Performance.
And how long have you been?
Altogether, about 7 years. I was in real estate for 6 years when I was living in Edmonton. And I just got my real estate license again this past year. So, yeah.
Wow.
In Winnipeg. No,
In Winnipeg, yeah.
So what is the market like?
The market is good. It's busy right now. The slump of 2018 has definitely gone by the wayside. And we see a steady increase. It's falling along the same lines as it was. So if you saw 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So 19's come right back up, especially for condo sales, we're noticing. Condo sales were not doing well. 2018, horrible. And we are starting to see a rise in that again.
And why is that? Like, is it something that Rana said, you know,
Like
seniors downsizing? Or?
It could be that, and it could be more people wanting to get into the real estate market and noticing that condos might be easier for them to maintain, or they're in a different price point.
Yeah.
So.
And so now, even when you're going to buy a condo or, you know,
Or house.
there is a lot of stuff you need to know.
Right. Yeah. So I just spent time with a new buyer the other day, and our presentation went beyond the 1.5, 2 hours to 4 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, because she had a lot of questions, and that's good. And people tend to forget everything anyway. There's too much to absorb. So whenever I'm working with a new buyer, a first-time home buyer, for example, I tend to answer the questions in the same words and in the same way. And eventually they go, I've asked this before, haven't I? I go, yes, you have.
And I've given you that answer.
Yeah, but there's a lot. It's not just the property. You need to know who's involved at what point, what the difference is between going to a bank for a pre-approval and going to a mortgage broker for financing.
So explain that.
That's a really good point.
Sure.
What would be the difference?
Big difference, actually, yeah. It's whenever you put an offer in on a property, you technically have a condition time. If you need financing, you want to make sure you have that financing in place. So you would go get a pre-approval, and then you would get a condition time, usually 4 days to 7 days on your offer to make sure the financing is finalized. But if you go for a pre-approval, if you just walk into any financial institution, they typically do a pre-qualification, and it's based on your income alone. So that's very different than a full
full-on
pre-approval.
with
Yeah,
all your
because
debt.
then,
Yeah.
exactly, they look at all of your different debts. And then I take it one step further and I look at their lifestyle, because I don't want any of my clients to be house poor. If they like going out for dinner and they like traveling, and all of a sudden they have a house at the top of their price range and they no longer have that income to do things, it changes things. But to go back to the financial institutions, mortgage brokers, they work relatively similar hours to real estate agents, which is all the time. And they'll come to you. Most of them are mobile, or you can go to them. They work on commission. And it is paid by the financial institutions, so it's not paid by the buyers. But because they work on commission versus a salary, like most bank employees, they tend to get things through quicker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not just that, it's more that they are not looking after every other type of banking. So when you go into a bank, even mortgage specialists, sometimes they have to take on other duties. Typical bank employees, they'll lines of credit, opening accounts. It's everything, right? So you want somebody who is specialized in what they're doing and can get things done efficiently.
More focused.
Are there changes? So who are they? Sorry, I know this is a dumb question, or maybe not, but
No
is
question
there
is dumb in this.
would they be going to the same institutions for?
That's a very good question.
Right? Because I mean, if you're going to a mortgage broker and you're, getting like a 12% interest, like is there like what's the difference between that? You know what I mean? Like a bank would be like what 4, 5, 3, whatever it is.
No, it really has not much to do with the interest rates. It has to do with the availability that they can get. So if you go to TD, for example, could be any bank, but TD, they only have access to TD products.
Oh, okay.
So even if it's a mortgage specialist, they only have access to TD products.
Where this guy can probably shop around.
Exactly.
Okay.
Whereas mortgage brokers have access to not just big banks, but also
private
every
lenders and everybody else.
and First National and other places that typical people haven't even heard of, and they're huge lenders for mortgages. So they can shop for you, which is beneficial, because if you're trying to shop for a mortgage on your own and you go into several different places, they will pull a credit check.
Yeah, and you'll see all of it.
And so your credit score keeps going down every time they check it. Whereas with a mortgage broker, they check your credit score once and they can apply that to every different place that they're looking for. So there's many different pros and cons. If you have a good relationship at a bank, maybe that changes things. But typically it's advantageous to talk to a mortgage broker as well and just see who is the right fit for you.
That's really good information.
It's good to know.
So I was going to say, because Love It or List It, I mean, it's a very, very popular show.
Yes.
So I was actually interested on like a lot of, siblings or sons and daughters are inheriting their parents' house. And do we live there? Do we maybe rent it out? Do we buy it and then give it to, our children?
It's funny you would bring that up, because I've had many consultations in the last couple months, because I have a unique skill set being an interior decorator as well as a real estate agent. And I've been running a promotion this spring called Should We Stay or Should We Go? And it's exactly that. So I'll do a comparative market analysis on their home to let them know a rough idea of, if they put it on the market today, what they would get for it, an estimate. And then I also do a consultation when it comes to what we could expect budget-wise to fix up the house to get it for top dollar, or to renovate it completely to become your dream home. So it's a consultation that encompasses all three things, so that they can sit there and make a good decision for themselves as to what they really want to do. I also talk about the process of renovation. So a lot of people don't know what they're getting into when they get into renovations. They're so used to going into stores and just picking out a piece of furniture, or turning on the tap and having water, And they don't
Yeah.
realize that it could be weeks, even months, depending on how extensive that renovation is. So they have to take into account all of the extra expenses. If they have to stay at a hotel, if they have to order out food, if they have to put things in storage, there's a ton of different things that don't even factor into the main renovation that are extra expenses for them.
So how many of you found out that they would want to make their dream home? Have you had any of your clients?
Yeah. So I've been, well, one couple in particular, they have a beautiful home in the Oaks, and they gutted it and made it their own. They were considering moving just because it was a bigger home, but it was also very, in their words, cave-like. And when I heard that on the phone, I went, I wonder what I'm walking into. What do they have on the walls? So when I walked in, I saw exactly what they meant. Everything was brown. Everything. The walls were brown. The cabinets were brown. The floors were brown. Everything was brown. And it was nearly the same shade. So they felt like they were just sunken into a space versus light and bright, and they can live in the space, right? So there should always be a balance in an interior, as in everything in life. And when we look at a balance in an interior, there has to be some warm and some cool. Well, warm brown tones everywhere will just drag you down.
Did they have an accent color?
Yeah, well, not really.
What are you?
Slightly off brown.
Slightly lighter brown.
Exactly. So,
Did you?
so we had a discussion about this, and I said, okay, well, it depends on, they liked their neighborhood. They liked the area that they were in, so they weren't really keen on moving, but they had no idea what this was going to entail. So we did it in stages, because it's a family living in the house, right?
Oh, they stayed in the home. while it was gutted. Oh, that's-
So we discussed everything, and they were prepped for it. They actually had relatives that were living nearby, and so they went over there for dinner on a regular basis. If they needed the kids to go for a sleepover, it could happen. So they had a very amiable situation to be able to do an extensive reno. But we changed that home completely. And after I was done, it was light and bright and airy and pops of color everywhere, and it just.
Well, that must make you feel great.
Like,
I
not only
always
us.
feel good.
Yes.
I always feel good when I finish an interior. In fact, whenever I'm finished an interior, I get a little nervous as to how they're going to react.
Oh, for sure.
Because I plan the big stuff with them, but then I do the full styling before they come in the door. So I hang all the draperies, I lay the carpet, I put the cushions out, I hang the art, like I get it all done. And then I get home and I go, why haven't I heard from them? And I panic. And I look at my husband and I'm like, how long does it take to eat dinner? When are they going home?
It's like the surprise party, and you're like waiting.
You're waiting in anticipation. And so I'm like, should I call them? Should I see? Should I? And what if they hate it? It's actually never happened in 20 years. So I don't know why I panic like this.
Touch wood.
Yes, touch wood. But it's because I do the legwork with them. Like I find out what they like, what they don't like, what they're attracted to, what they're not, how they live in the space. We go through a lot of details. So if they did hate it, maybe they're doppelgangers who came back in the house. I have no idea. But it would be very hard. Yeah, exactly. So, but I always have that small moment of panic before they actually see the home. And then I get gushing reviews and I'm all excited. Then there's gushing reviews and it's all good.
Like, did you know that when you stepped into your house, Nanette, that was going to be your house?
No. Mind you, I was also 6 months pregnant. So it was like, I just want a house.
Sit down.
I just want to rest and have a good meal.
But then you make it your house.
You
You know what did it for me was they had added an addition to the back of the house, and so it was your pretty standard, and then you walk through, and then suddenly it opened up and it was a completely different home.
Oh,
And it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is it. This
Yeah.
is it. I could see my kids playing there while I fixed dinner. Yeah, you sort of
Yes.
picture yourself in there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
always an emotional buy when you're
Yeah.
buying your home.
I
Yeah.
do. Like, I have a question. Have you ever encountered a house where they're kind of like, we want to stay, and then you do the analysis and everything, and you're like, oh, this house probably needs to be demolished. It's just not in any good shape.
Never a demolish, actually.
Yeah?
You know, if people have been living there for a long time, it's usually a nice and sturdy home. It's if they've inherited something that's been abandoned or
Okay.
nobody's lived in it for a while. That would be the only real situation. Or if even if it needs extensive foundation work, there are people that can do that. So,
Okay.
but that has to be an addition to the renovation that they might
Okay.
not be
It's a
prepared for
massive investment.
cost-wise, right?
Right, yeah.
So it's always a discussion, every
What about
project.
just investment properties? I mean, that's
Yeah.
it's a pretty interesting business to be in if you just
It
want
is,
something to
sure.
flip
Yeah.
for fun.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing better to do.
I had a lot of fun with it in Edmonton because I was there between 2002 and 2008.
Okay.
So the market was rising,
yeah.
rising. Like it was at a peak 2006, 2007. And then it just dropped right off in 2008. It was
Yeah.
crazy. But prior to that, I mean, it was
It was a
fun.
gold mine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
What
my
would you
husband
buy?
and I
Yeah.
invested, and I had a ton of clients who invested. One in particular, she was a young woman. She was in her early 20s. And I remember, oh, if I could go back. But she was in her early 20s. And she was working in a trade, and she was working up in the north area. And she was one of the only ones who didn't spend their money on
Booze and drugs.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. And so she came down and we met somehow, I can't remember, but she goes, I'm interested in actually looking for a house. And then we started talking, and I go, if you have this much expendable cash, this would be a good idea for you. Like if if you don't want to work in this trade forever, let's make a retirement plan for you.
Right.
So she ended up buying 3 properties, and she had 2 rentals, and yeah, she's
She's
doing
still
well.
there? Or
I don't know. I lost touch with her after we moved, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you say flip it, so because I don't know, but so you buy a property, you maybe renovate it, and then you
That would
flip
be a
it.
flip for sure,
Yeah.
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 So typically those types of investors are looking for something they can get for super cheap and doesn't take a lot of work.
Right.
And whenever I'm working with buyers who are looking in that price range, I have to be very careful to see if it's a good renovation or if they've done something I like to term lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
okay.
Those, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
So just had a client a while ago, and there were obvious things that they just kind of cheaped out on, or they did a
How do you
half-assed
know?
job
how,
on.
Like how would you know? You go knocking on walls or
I didn't even have to go that far. There were popsicle sticks holding up a fluorescent light. Like there was obvious things in this house that I went, oh my goodness, like.
Okay.
So in those cases, they might still be a good investment if we can get the price down and we have a home inspection done on it to make sure
yeah.
there's not another list of things to get done. And even if that happens, you can sometimes go back to the table and renegotiate,
Right.
which brings me to another great topic. You should always have your own agent when you're buying a house.
Okay.
Yeah. If
I've heard of
you
that.
really have questions or you want advice during that time or whatnot, don't call the name on the sign just because you want to see that house. Make sure you have your own representative. It's like
Okay.
going into court and expecting the other side's lawyer to look after you too.
Right, yeah.
So it depending on how the negotiations go. But whenever you're in a double ending situation, the realtor, if they're looking after both the seller and the buyer, they can no longer talk about money or motivation of buying or selling with either client in order to mitigate the conflict of interest.
Okay.
But that leaves you in a very tough position as the realtor, because if your clients are new investors or first-time home buyers and they're sitting there and they're going, well, what do we offer? Like do we take this? Do we not?
You
We
can't
can't
say
say
something.
anything. Our hands are tied, right?
Interesting.
So
Okay. Yeah.
more experienced people, they can sometimes go, it doesn't matter, we're fine. But for people who will have questions or are looking at something that's a little tougher, I always suggest have your own representation so that you can ask those questions and get advice.
Makes sense. For sure. Yeah.
And for myself, I don't double end properties. I don't, no. I believe in talk to your service, right? So I believe in sitting down with somebody and talking to them, probably longer than they expect because it's me and I tend to talk, but I tend to like to sit down and give them the advice that they want. And,
And just have you be the kind of go-to person, let them feel comfortable, and just have that relationship.
And,
for sure.
and I just don't ever want to be in a situation where my hands are tied and I can't give them the advice that I would typically give,
I
right?
realize that.
Yeah. So
But I think
for
that
me,
they would
I
have to
refer
agree
them.
to that, though.
Right.
I think both parties would have to agree to.
Oh yeah, it's
like there would have to
very,
be. Yeah.
it's
It would
very
definitely.
transparent, the process. They actually have to sign forms.
Yeah, you would find.
Yeah, it
declaration.
has to be
Okay.
explained to everybody, and there has to be a form filled out. So,
Okay.
yeah, every party involved will know what they're involved in. It
Yeah.
just,
This is different.
Different,
Very
yeah.
different.
Bad
Yeah.
idea.
So like I
Just
guess
as a general rule in life,
it's
just
a
a
bad
bad idea.
double-ended just doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound good. Yeah.
No matter what you're doing.
Yeah. Flip it on the other hand.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Flipping,
If
that's a
you wanna
different
flip it,
story.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay. But crazy hours you must have, girl.
sometimes.
Sometimes.
I would imagine.
I'm off a stretch right now where it was a little hectic. So
Yeah.
for the last 2 weeks, it was 14 to 18-hour days and long time. Yeah, I haven't had a day off in about a month, but that's my own fault. It's totally
This is-
my own fault. I tend to get addicted to the process. If people come in and they want help, I just want to help them. And I get a high from the negotiations, and I get a high from them turning the key in their first place. And I love the whole, I love the whole thing.
I want a job that I feel
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I love
Yeah.
I love. That's
Yeah, I love the
such
whole
passion
thing.
behind.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
love that.
so I tend to forget about self-care. People talk about self-care and whatnot. I forget to eat. Like I forget big self-care. I forget like basics, essentials.
No, you didn't
Yeah.
forget anything here in
Yeah.
staging this. This has been
It
beautiful.
looks great.
I
Well,
love
I'm
it.
glad you like
Yeah,
it.
no,
Thank
it's-
you.
Looks really great.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a bad customer or a bad client?
Oh,
Like
bad clients.
Clients of health?
Well, just like in life, right?
But I
You're
can't
gonna
imagine
meet
you
people you
being-
mesh with and people
Yeah.
you don't.
Like you're just so
Bubbly.
positive and bubbly. Like,
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Get along with everyone.
meanwhile, she's
You can see that side, eh? No, I have had a couple of experiences with people who I don't want to work with, and so it's a few experiences. I won't say one or two, but a few. I'll give you a couple of examples. If somebody wants me to do something illegal, I will not do it.
Really? They've asked you to do that?
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, property disclosure statements, the sellers are supposed to fill them out. And I had one person going, well, I don't really need to tell them that, do I? And I went, well, it has to do with cracks in the foundation and leaking. So, yeah, you do. So, yeah, I didn't take that listing because they needed somebody who meshed with their code of ethics, and it was not me.
It was not.
No.
So I've had other people where I went into a listing presentation one time, and the husband actually dismissed the wife and said he'll call her back when he needs a signature. And I went, okay. So that to me was painful. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I can mesh with this guy, just in his demeanor and whatnot. And so I just respectfully told him, I think you'd be better served by a different type of agent. And he goes, oh, okay. And we had a candid conversation about it. But it came after he had had a hockey game on the whole time I was presenting, and I had to reiterate everything I had just said. So the whole presentation was not good. And so there was that situation. And then there was somebody who called me at 1:45 in the morning because he wanted to see a vacant property. And I went, what? So I was a little taken aback. The only reason I answered the phone is because I thought it was an emergency. It was a family member or something like that. Because I was sound asleep. That was one of the rare nights I got to sleep before 1. But I was sound asleep. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, but do you realize what time it is? Because I thought maybe you just got lost in the search and never thought to even look. And he says, yeah. And I went, well, I'm sleeping. Like I'm not getting out of bed to show you a property. I go, I'm back in the office at 7 a.m. and I'm happy to set up an appointment with you and take you then, but not right now. And he goes, realtors say they never sleep. And he got all a bit abusive on the phone. He called me a couple names. And I went, oh, okay. I said, first of all, the realtors who advertise that they never sleep are doing all of us a disservice because
we do sleep.
We're human, right? If I was a robot, probably not.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And what are you doing at 1 a.m. looking for property? Oh,
Well, and as a single woman at the time, I'm like, that's just a safety issue.
Right.
I'm not doing that.
Not
For
too,
sure.
right? Because it's been,
But-
I mean, for women,
I've
realtors
heard
too, safety
somebody
is an
got
issue.
hurt. Someone died. Someone got killed in a. But this was in the States, I think.
It happens here too.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Yeah, we actually have an internal emailing service, and it lets us know about stuff that we need to be wary of.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. That's good.
yeah.
Yeah, that
so-
would be super.
Protect your agents.
Well, I just can't imagine waking you up at 1 o'clock after a day.
Well, I told the guy, I said, trust me, you don't want to see me right now. You just want to see me at 1 in the morning.
Yeah. So I'm doing you a favor right now.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Jennifer, we thank you so,
Yeah, it was
so
so,
much.
so, a lot of great information.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
great.
I'm happy to
yeah,
help. And
have you.
anytime you have questions, just feel free.
We're gonna have you back on, like when we're needing your
Homes or a condo or something fun.
your real
Happy
estate
to.
prowess.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we're staging another.
Love it.
Yes, love it. Yes.
Yes.
Staging another one of these for us.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Cheers.
Going to the summer, it's a good conversation to have with
Thank
people.
you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.